irrespective of the fields that we belong to, we all want that perpetual growth. We want to grow, evolve, push our limits. And for that, very important and integral part, let me tell you, is advices and feedbacks that we all want from someone who we feel is more experienced than us, be it in terms of age or professional exposure. But let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that the very trajectory of our improvement depends upon how we receive those advices and with what intent do we receive those advices. Am I right? So in today's video, I'll be sharing with you 3 super awesome, simple approaches that you need to follow while giving someone advices or feedbacks in a more constructive and effective manner. So number 1, the first and the most important one, do not sound like a condescending know-it-all critic. I repeat, do not sound like a condescending know-it-all critic. Understand the difference between solicited and unsolicited advices. Because there are moments in a person's life where they're not actually open to receiving advices from your end. And any advice from your side might negatively impact their growth or mental health and so many other spheres of their life. For example, I am making a YouTube video, right? And you're liking my videos, you're disliking my videos, you're subscribing to my channel, you're watching them. So in a way, I hope you're learning or perceiving something from it, right? So in a way, my work impacts your growth. It impacts your learning. So I am open-endedly open for all suggestions, some kind of constructive feedbacks from your side, so that I keep on improving. Because after all, my growth or my learning or my improvement affects you in some way or the other. But someone, if is in a personal sphere doing something and you feel that the person is in dire need of advices or feedbacks, then you really need to understand that whether the person is first of all ready to give the advices, and you also need to establish a particular intent for your advices so that it is not perceived in a way that you don't want to, right? So intent is very important. And second thing, you need to establish a time frame, like what exactly will be a suitable time for that person to receive advices in a constructive and effective manner, because we are not all open for advices all the time. You need to understand that. Second most important tip that I learned from some of the experienced evaluators specifically is the CRC approach. Commendation, recommendation, and then commendation. Let me tell you what it is. For example, if I listen to a speech of somebody, they are very good in body language, content, pronunciation, annotations, but I feel they could have a little bit slow. They could have been a little bit slow with their pace, or they might have added or incorporated some of the pauses in their speech. So there are 2 ways to give them suggestions or feedback. Number 1, a good content, but I believe more pauses could have been there because I couldn't really understand what you were speaking. The second way, I loved your body language. Your pronunciation was up to the mark. Your language was up to the mark. Your annotation, your vocal variety, voice modulation, I just loved it. But the immensity, the level of immensity that your content had you incorporated a little bit more pauses, it would just have added feather to the cap. It would have sounded more beautiful and the audience would have been able to comprehend it more easily. So that is the 2 ways in which you give advices. The first one, obviously, you sound like a critic, you sound negative. But the second one, the intent and the perspective completely changes. First, you start with commendations. What exactly did you like in the speech of that person? Then you make a beautiful transition to the recommendations. What do you think that the person can really improve upon in order to make an effective speech, right? And then you summarize it in a way that really prompts that person to come back and thrive again with a different level of energy. Because after all, you want them to grow and not stagnate, right? So follow the CRC approach. And one more very important thing in this approach is use the words I. I believe that. I believe you could have done that. I believe you did that wonderfully. There needs to be a term I, first person, because you don't, after all, want that person to take your evaluation as a generalized perspective. Of course, that person might be open to too many feedbacks or suggestions from so many people. He has all the right to mix all these feedbacks and create create a kind of trajectory for his own improvement. So whenever you give evaluation to somebody, use the term I believe you are wonderful in this thing. I believe you can improve upon this thing. Use first person, right? With this, moving on to my third and last tip, but very important it is that do not always project your own experiences of your own time frame that you belong to. For example, you can't expect an 18-year or 20-year-old girl or boy to understand the experiences that you go through and then learn from those experiences, right? You need to scaffold. You need to trace your experiences back to a point where it's easily understandable by a kid or easily understandable by a teenager. It's better if you pick up their own experiences, some of the life's instances that they have been through, and then incorporate some of your learnings into that as to how they can do it better. So always trace back your experiences to a point, scaffold them to a point where it's easily understandable by the person who you're giving the suggestion, and don't project your own experiences, notions onto them. Try to be in their shoes, because after all, the point is being more empathetic. The point is reflecting through your intent that you really want them to improve. So these were 3 very simple tips, but above all, I want you to sound more credible when you do that. Make sure that while you're giving suggestion and feedback to somebody, you know about that matter or subject. And if you do not know, it's very easy and simple. You can say, it will take time for me to suggest you about that thing. I'll have to read about it. I'll maybe give you that suggestion, and you can take this feedback from me tomorrow morning, and maybe in a day or 2, or maybe in a week or a month. It doesn't matter. If you don't know it, clearly say and ask for time. It's completely fine, but do not lose your credibility just in order to sound more competent and more kind of experienced person, because after all, you end up losing credibility, right? So summing up these suggestions, I would say, number 1, do not sound like a condescending, know-it-all critic. Establish the difference between solicited and unsolicited advices. Know exactly those points, those time frames where the person will need your advice, and kind of convert that intent in a way so that it is perceived by the other person in the same way that you want to give the advice. Second one, follow the CRC approach. Commendation, recommendation, and then summarize it in a way that prompts that speaker, that prompts that learner who is in any sphere of life to just come and thrive with kind of a change or growth, right? And the last one I gave was about, do not lose the credibility. If you don't know about something, take some time. It's okay to take some time, but yes, first learn about that thing and then give feedback to somebody, because after all, it's a matter of their growth. It's a matter of something that will be ingrained in their minds for a longer period of time, right? With this, I really hope that these suggestions were useful to you, and if it was, then please like, share, and hit the subscribe button. I'll be back with another video shortly. Thank you.